Shalom, this is Amir Tsarfati, and I'm together with Pastor Barry Stagner. This is a Middle East update, and we want to talk today about several issues, everything between the Israeli strike in Syria, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Syria itself between the Turks and the Iranian slash Syrian slash Russian forces that are attacking in the north, in the part of Idlib. We're also going to talk about what's going on in Iraq and what's going on in Iran. But we're also going to talk about the coronavirus, which is much bigger, much bigger than what the Chinese authorities are telling the world. It is spreading fast. The death toll is maybe 50 times more than what they're telling you. We have a lot of information coming from China itself. And this is not something that the world would like to see spreading, because it is way deadlier than anything we've seen before. And we'll talk about that as well. So we're going to start with that. Pastor Barry, a few days ago, you know where I live. I live in the Jezreel Valley, and just a couple miles from my house is the F-16 Air Base, Ramat David. And it was 1 a.m. that I heard a takeoff. And, you know, I'm still battling with my jet lag. This is the third jet lag in 25 days. And so it's very easy for me to wake up. I heard a takeoff at 1 a.m. And when you hear a takeoff at 1 a.m., it's not a regular drill or some sort of exercise or even not even routine flight. Normally it's some sort of a heavy duty stuff. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, we hear that the air defense systems around Damascus were already operated. This time, the Israeli F-16s were very careful not to enter into Syrian airspace. And from the top of the Golan Heights, they released the rockets that actually destroyed a lot of what the Iranians brought in recent days to several areas in the greater Damascus area. The commander of the airbase, a Syrian commander of the airbase, a general commander of the airbase, died together with over 30 different foreign militia soldiers there, and a lot of damage. The Russians came out a couple hours later saying that Israel endangered a Syrian airliner that came all the way from Iraq and was on his way to land in the Damascus International Airport and had to divert its landing to the Latakia airport. Yeah. Russians were not happy about that. So we're seeing, Barry, that the Israeli operations in Syria continues. And we're seeing that the death of Soleimani is not stopping Israel from fighting against the entrenchment of the Iranian militias in and around Damascus. And we all know, can you revive and remind and refresh our memory for what the Bible say about Damascus?
Well, Isaiah 17:1 says Damascus will be a ruinous heap. And in essence, that implies it will cease from being a city. And, you know, those in Syria like to lay claim to Damascus being the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, dating back some 4,500 years. And it's going to become uninhabitable. And this will happen in a very short spans of time, obviously. So we always have that laying out there on the horizon. But Amir, one of the other things I think that's interesting about what you just shared is in recent days, you know, we might watch what's happening between Putin and Netanyahu and Russia and Israel and say, well, you know, it seems like things are warming up. And yet here we go. We have the Russians saying the accusation that actually came out of Moscow was that the Israelis are using commercial planes for a shadow for their firing upon, you know, these Syrian targets, and accusing them of basically saying that their objectives are greater than even the value of human life, and making these kind of accusations, which tells us that there is even though we may see things on the surface, that things may visibly look as though they are warming and ties are wonderful between the two nations, there is a constant undercurrent that will not be broken, and that is the relationship between Russia, Persia, Libya,
Yes.
Sudan, and all these other nations that are going to work in coalition against Israel.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I believe that it's interesting that the Russians did not speak that harshly against the Iranian shooting of the Ukrainian airliner. Isn't that interesting? They shot down a Ukrainian airliner, and the Russians were much more forgiving than this one.
Yeah.
But I do want to explain to many people that, with all the commotion about the deal of the century, which is, just nonsense, because the deal of the century will never be implemented. You and I know that there is not going to be a Palestinian state. By the way, Trump knows that, Israel knows that, and the Palestinians know that. Yeah. That's why they are so much against it, because this one will never give them any state. But the thing is, what is left from the deal of the century is the ladder that President Trump gave to the Arab Sunni world to get down from the tree, the high tree that they climb on, as for standing and fighting for the Palestinian cause. He basically said, look, there you go. There is a plan for two states and $50 billion aid, and there you go. Take it or leave it. And so the Arab states are saying, you know what? This is a good plan. And you know what? This is a plan that we can work with. And so now let's talk with Israel. And how many hours did it take from the moment of the unveiling of this plan to the point where the leader of Sudan met with Netanyahu, ate dinner with him, laughed with him, and signed an agreement with him that will allow foreign airliners that fly in and out of Tel Aviv to use the airspace of Sudan? Sudan. Now, what you said a few minutes ago, you said that for now, Russia's interest is to be with Israel or to have some sort of friendship with Israel. It's exactly what we see with Sudan right now. The Sudanese leader just said, look, for now, our interests are more to be with Israel than to be against Israel. They all wake up to understand that standing for the Palestinian cause gave them nothing but headache, and actually caused them to miss out so much from collaborating with Israel. And in a very bold move, the Sudanese leader decided, you know what? I need to take care of my people. And so here you go. There is a peace plan. Here you go. There is a peace deal. Here you go. There is a two-state solution. Now, let me talk to the Israelis right now. So the two-state solution that Trump offered, everybody knows will never work. Everybody knows will never be implemented. Everybody knows will, the only thing that does work is that Israel is going to annex land, and that the Arab world is now our friends. These are the things we see that are happening, and they play perfectly into Bible prophecy. So,
it's pretty amazing to think about what you just mentioned with Sudan in particular, because I think it's kind of curious that the decision of the Sudanese government was basically an understanding that, listen, if we're going to tap into resources and support from the United States, we're going to have to go through Israel. And the president has made it quite clear that the enemies of Israel are considered the adversaries of the United States as well. And so our relationship continues to deepen and grow, even to the point where, Sudan is going to be participating in the invasion of Israel, I believe, during the tribulation period. And yet here they are, understanding again, because of the need to be supported by the United States, to have a friendly relationship with the United States. They're in essence playing the game because these are the rules. And this is what President Trump has established.
Exactly. Well, I just think it's amazing that the president of Sudan admits openly that he had dinner with Netanyahu, that he laughed with Netanyahu, and that he talked with Netanyahu on the interest of Sudan. I mean, do we understand how historic and how amazing it is? And are we still talking about Palestinian state? I mean, of the entire deal of the century, the one thing everyone agree on is that it will never lead to a Palestinian state. The Israelis are happy with this
Yeah.
deal because they know it will not lead to a Palestinian state. The Palestinians are angry about this deal because they know it will never lead to a Palestinian state. And the Arab world that is tired of the Palestinians is happy with this deal because it will not give them a state, yet there is an offer on the table, take it or leave it. And the bottom line also that I always tell people is that this deal brought the Palestinians back to reality. Look, the Israelis live in the West Bank. They own Jerusalem. They are on the Jordan Valley's border with Jordan. You need to accept this reality if you want to move forward. They are not going anywhere. So let's not even talk about taking more land from Israel because the Israelis will not move from where they are already. Look, twice land was taken from Israel in the last 25 years. One time is when we evacuated Israeli settlements in order to get the Oslo Agreement moving. And the second time is in 2004, the disengagement from Gaza. And in both times that we did that, it did not bring any peace at all. So the new approach is Israel is not to evacuate or to move or to give any more land to anyone anymore. This is it. And I'm trying to explain that to people because they don't understand that the deal of the century is meant not to give more to the Palestinians. Not to give more, but not to give more. The idea is wherever Israel is, Israel stays. We're not dismantling anything. And if anything, the deal of the century is leading to the Arab world warming up towards Israel, to the greater sovereignty of Israel in parts of our ancestral homelands that so far the world did not recognize that is ours. And the one thing for sure, everybody agrees, it will not lead to any Palestinian state. So we're using two terms, Eastern Jerusalem and two-state solution, and in both cases, those terms are not used in order to truly talk about Jerusalem or a Palestinian state. They're being used only to make the bitter pill a bit sweeter for the Arab world. Look, Pastor Barry, the President of the United States, is telling the world Jerusalem is staying under Israel. And 2 days later, the leader of Sudan wants to talk to the Jews. How about that?
Yes.
Historic.
Yeah, it's amazing. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has come out and said, if there's a positive in all this, the deal of the century or the slam of the century, it's that it has brought the Palestinian plight to the international arena. And really what it's done is it's exposed the fact that the Palestinians have never agreed to anything, even looking back to 2000 with the offer made by Ehud Olmert, that he was going to give them 95% of the West Bank. He was going to give them 95% of the West Bank as well as East Jerusalem. And yet they refused that offer because the intention is not, to get East Jerusalem or to have a two-state solution. Their intention is a one-state solution occupied only by Palestinians where there's no place for Israel.
Exactly.
So again, I think Khamenei was right. It did present to the international arena the Palestinian stance, but it's not in a positive light. It's in a negative light.
Exactly. Look who is against the deal. Who is against the deal? The Democrats. 100 Democrats wrote to President Trump, 100 Congress, saying that they're opposing it. The Iranians, the Turks, Hamas, the PLO. I mean, the group is not that of the best of the best in the world. And by the way, the leader of one of the leaders of the Palestinians said that only if Netanyahu will no longer be elected as prime minister, the tension between the Palestinians and the Israelis will go down. I mean, sounds familiar on your side? I mean, everybody's promising, even in America, things will be better only if Trump will not be the president anymore.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing in all these things happening in both countries, which, it's interesting because of this particular portion of land that's going to be the focus of world attention in the last days. The main ally of Israel today, of course, is the United States. And here you've got both leaders of both countries that are being undermined by people within the political arena in both countries, and false accusations are being made. And, Amir, let me ask you something. You had made mention in a conversation we had before, I think even an update that we had before, about what the accusations were against Netanyahu. And they were, I hate to use the word, but they were comical. It was ridiculous, the things that were being thrown at him, that were accusing him of abuse of power, and the other things that are being leveled against our president here as well. And maybe you could, for my own sake, remind us of what those things are that are being leveled.
Well, Netanyahu is accused for receiving from one of his friends champagne and cigars. I mean, they think that he should have reported that. This guy, I don't think he slept one night since he became prime minister without something that happened. So if he needs to have a glass of champagne, who am I to say that he's not allowed to drink it, especially if the champagne was given to him by his friend? I mean, are we trying a prime minister for drinking champagne and smoking cigars? Are we out of our mind?
That was a gift.
Yeah, a gift from a friend who never got anything in return, by the way. Second,
Right. Yeah.
The second thing is they say that Netanyahu received positive coverage from his friend in his media outlet. I want to tell you something. There's not even a single Israeli politician that is more bashed than Prime Minister Netanyahu, him and his family. And when they asked them, guys, has anyone ever before in Israel tried for positive coverage? They said, no, this is a precedent. I mean, we're going to make this a precedent. Never in the history of Israel, anyone was tried for getting positive coverage. I mean, that's the bribery, positive coverage. He never received anything. And yet when you ask them, so on what basis has it ever happened before that? I mean, they said, well, we're going to make this one a precedent. So when it comes to Netanyahu, it has to be a precedent. Look, listen, somebody whispered to me that they're now working on a new thing against Trump. Isn't that interesting? The leader of Blue and White, Benny Gantz, just said that tomorrow he's going to bring another case against Netanyahu. Look, when they see that they fail, they try again and again and again. Something eventually has to stick. And honestly, unlike in America, in Israel, the Israelis bought it. I'm telling you the truth. Netanyahu needs a miracle to be able to form a government after the March 2nd elections. It doesn't look good to him at all. And quite frankly, Trump needs a miracle also. And the reason is, although he's filling up stadiums and he's having great success, and he's probably the best president we've had in so many years, unfortunately, the majority, the masses in both California and New York are brainwashed, and to vote anything. Look, there's 60% of the Democrats in New Hampshire just said, have you heard of that one? They just said that they rather have.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
They prefer having a meteor hitting Earth than having Trump reelected. I mean, do you understand what we're talking about there? The hatred is demonic. It's also in Israel. I must say, I've never seen anything like that in my life. Never. Netanyahu needs a miracle. I'm going to pray for, God. Our God is the God of miracles. I mean, I am not going to take that from him, but there's nothing short than a miracle that he needs in order to be getting the 61 seats in order to form a government. And unfortunately, again, it doesn't look good, just like it didn't look good last time. I wanted to, Pastor Barry, let's talk for a few minutes on, people say that America is going to be judged for dividing Israel and dividing Jerusalem and all of that. I kind of thought that it's interesting that a person that says to all the Jewish people, I'm not going to allow anyone to evacuate his house, and I'm declaring Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel. It's kind of funny that a peace treaty is that the Israelis like is actually being accused. A person is being accused for dividing the land. But a lot of believers take verses out of context. Joel chapter 3 says, "For behold, in those days, in that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I also gather all the nations." That, of course, when Jesus comes back. But look at this, "And I will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will enter into judgment with them there on the account of my people, my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations." Look what they did. Those nations kicked the Jews out of their land, scattered them around the nations, divided up his land, cast lots for his people, given boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. Is this the deal of the century? I mean, do we understand that that we're talking about epic events such as what the Romans did in the year 70 AD and what the Antichrist is going to do, during the tribulation? That's what we're talking about. Kicking the Jews out of their land, dividing the land between themselves, and selling the Jewish people as payment for. I mean, these are things that nations will be judged for, and these are things that have been done before, and they will be done in the future. But this is not the deal of the century, that is actually allowing the Jews to live in their land, giving them more land than they had before, acknowledging their sovereignty in their capital, Jerusalem, and all of that. So we have to be very careful when we divide the word, don't we?
Yes. And, I have seen and received Joel 3 more times than I can even count, but nobody has texted me or emailed me or private messaged me Joel 3:1, which says, "In those," and at that time, pointing back to what Joel chapter 2 says, which speaks of a time where the sun is darkened as sackcloth and the moon is turned into blood, which is fulfilled in Revelation chapter 6. So clearly this puts us inside the tribulation period. Zechariah 14 talks about the same thing, a time when the city is divided, and in that day God will fight as he fights against all the nations gathered against Jerusalem. And Amir, I think it's important too to point out we're still in the Gentiles. God has gathered his people back into the land. He is preparing them for that 70th week when he's going to deal directly with the nation of Israel once again, finally looking upon the one whom they pierced at the second coming and mourning for him as one mourns for an only son. And I think what you brought up about 2004 is important to recognize, because it tells us that Israel allowed the land to be divided in a sense when they gave over the Gaza Strip and removed themselves from there. Yet, if we look at 2004, Israel is now the 8th strongest military in the world. Israel has the 8th strongest economy in the world. And I would say that that's not God's wrath. That is definitely a nation that is being blessed and God fulfilling his word. So, again, if we just look at this and allow Scripture to interpret Scripture, of course the Palestinians have no right to any portion of the nation of Israel. Of course they have no rights within the geographic boundaries that God has assigned. And yet, all of a sudden with this deal, it's being likened unto the covenant made by the Antichrist, and it's going to bring catastrophic results to the country, our country, your country, and all these other things. But if we let the Scripture speak for itself and note that the dividing of the land that brings about the wrath of God is during the tribulation concerning Jerusalem, then we'll have a better exegesis, if you will, of our eschatology, our last days understanding.
Pastor Barrett reminds me, I just posted a news piece on how Jared Kushner said that Abbas is responsible for the increasing violence now in the last few days. All the comments were that Jared Kushner is the Antichrist. So I'm I'm thinking, and then when I asked why would you say that, they said, oh, he looks creepy. And I'm thinking to myself, since when the Antichrist is the Antichrist just because you think he looks creepy? You're talking about a faithful Jew who is the son-in-law of the president of the United States, who is the biggest fighter against globalism, and the Antichrist is the biggest product of globalism. So one, I mean, you have to understand something. The fact that he was on behalf of President Trump doing the peace deal, actually he gave Israel what Israel wanted. He gave Israel what Israel wanted when it comes to the map, when it comes to keeping Jerusalem, keeping their settlements, all of that. In fact, we could have not asked for a better mediator than Jared Kushner on our behalf. Now, I'm just thinking to myself, where else do we have any similarity here between this one and the one of the Antichrist? Look, if we believe that we're not here to see the Antichrist, then it's not him. And I can also tell you that we don't, Antichrist again is someone who will be, he will be much more charismatic than this Jared Kushner. Let me tell you one thing. I don't understand why Christians, first of all, every time somebody says peace, they think it's the worst thing ever. And they immediately pull out this. Look, peace is something that every believer should strive and should want to live in. In fact, the Bible says that we should run our life and pray for our leaders so we can live in peace. That's one thing. Now, when it comes to Israel, the deal that the Antichrist is going to cut with Israel is a deal that will allow them to build a temple. It's a deal that will be much different, much bigger than what has ever been offered to the Jewish people. And so we really have to be very careful. And I believe that you and I hope all those that are watching us right now, remember that we're not supposed to be here to see the rise of the Antichrist. So we're not supposed to be here to see the 7 years treaty signed even, and certainly not the temple, third temple being built in Jerusalem. Don't you think so?
Yeah, and Amir, we don't know all the details as to what's going to happen during the tribulation as far as who's what. We've got a federation of nations that's going to rise to power that Revelation 17 says that they have not received yet. So we don't know who all the players are going to be, if the international boundaries are going to be redrawn by the Antichrist. There's a lot of things that we don't know, don't need to know, because we're not going to be here. But one of the things I think that's interesting is when we look at the rise to power, East and the false prophet. Now, I don't want to say this dogmatically, but there is a pretty strong possibility that the Antichrist be a Jew, because he rises up from the sea, which is idiomatically used as the nations, and where the false prophet rises, which is used as an idiom for the nation of Israel. So the false prophet could possibly be a Jew, and the Antichrist could be a Gentile. So, again, throwing candidates out there, and I like what you said, about the fact that some people say, well, look at him, he's creepy. Hey, when they were sitting around the table with Jesus at the Last Supper, nobody knew that Judas was the betrayer. So looking creepy, identifying mark of a betrayer. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, it's exactly the opposite with the Antichrist, where he's a flat talker. People follow after him. Revelation says the whole world is going to go after him and bow in worship to him. So, I don't think that's really the qualifier for being the Antichrist, is being creepy looking.
Yeah, exactly. One more thing I want to mention to all of you guys is that there are, ever since Soleimani was killed on January 3rd, Iran was exposed to be much weaker than everybody thought, and is also deterred by the United States of America. And therefore, all the mice came out of their holes right now. And in Syria, Erdogan feels way stronger than ever before to not just allow the Shiite militias continue, but now to fight back. Now, what we're watching right now, and I'm watching that every day on my channels and in my intelligence community here in Israel, I'm watching hundreds of tanks, armored vehicles, and aircrafts that are crossing the border, literally. Now, this is unlike Iran, where Bashar al-Assad is saying, I allow the Iranians in my territory. Assad is telling the world, I don't allow the Turks into my territory. And yet the Turks invaded into Syria. They are bringing more and more Sunni rebels into the area. They're bringing their own soldiers. And just last week, we had an incident where several Turkish soldiers got killed. By the way, there were also some Russian soldiers who got killed. I'm not even talking about the Syrian soldiers. Scores of them are getting killed every day. And what happened when the Turkish soldiers got killed, Erdogan got so angry that he sent F-16s and he destroyed 16 outposts of Syrian military and killed over 100 soldiers over there, and then immediately ran to report to the whole world. They killed 8 of mine. I killed almost 100 over there. And he has emboldened himself much more ever since Soleimani is dead, because Iran is, again, much weaker. Now, another thing, Pastor Barry, that we're watching is Iran understands that they'll never be this, the world will never be the same. If after Soleimani's death, the oil price is still $50, that means somebody already took their market share. That's it. And if Iran will ever come back to produce, look, when Iran is not producing and it's $50, if Iran will come back to produce, first of all, they lost their market. Second of all, when there will be too much oil, the prices will even be lower and it might not even be worth the production. So the Iranians are in a very, very hard situation right now, from within and from outside. And I can only imagine that striking Israel is going to be the one thing that they will find refuge in, among other reasons, such as preparing the place for the Mahdi and other things. Don't you think so?
Well, if you package all these things together, one of the things we know is that those who are in power, in positions like the Ayatollah, that they are interested in hanging on to power. And when they see it slipping away, that's oftentimes when you see the most radical in order to protect their position. We've seen the Iranian people, among which, some of these in the 20 age category are experiencing some 40 to 45% unemployment. And this is causing significant people in the country. Their population, I believe the last numbers I heard, was pushing some 65 to 70% of 40 years old, trying to raise families, trying to make a living. So there's great unrest on the streets. So when you find power slipping away, often when you see someone take a radical action like striking Israel. And Amir, as you were talking, I was thinking, how strange is it that, this invasion point from the northern border of Israel is made by all these groups that are named by their geographic regions. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, you've got, Russia's involvement, you've got the Persian involvement, you've got the Sudanese involvement, Libya's involvement, and yet there's no mention of Syria. Yeah. And what you just mentioned, I think, in that Turkey, who plays a major role in the invasion, is now basically taking a stance in Libya to say, we're controlling the flow of oil in the Mediterranean area, at least this portion, the access and all. And so you've got the material aspect of the invasion of Israel, the coming to take booty and plunder, the protesting nations say, now coming more and more into the picture, and Turkey becoming aggressive with the loss of soldiers and things of that nature. So again, you've got another front where something is pushing the possibility of this coming invasion. And again, like we mentioned times in the past, I think it's worth noting that this seems to be something that happens during the tribulation period. So if we're seeing developments of events that'll happen during the tribulation, that means they're at the door and we could be out of here anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so remember what I said about New Hampshire. So again, let me, I have it now. 62% of New Hampshire Democrats say they prefer human extinction to second Trump term. I mean, can you see it?
Oh, goodness.
Okay, now, beyond that, I wanted to tell you, Pastor Barry, that let's talk for a few seconds about the coronavirus. You and I were on the same page on it from day one, that this is not a small thing. This is not a small thing. You don't quarantine cities of millions of people. Right now, more than 50 million Chinese are quarantined. I mean, they are not allowed to even leave the city or their houses. This is bigger. Now, by the way, with the whistleblower, the Chinese, the 32-year-old optometrist, I forgot. Well, he was an eye doctor, that's for sure. He's the one who basically said, "Hey guys, there's a new virus here, and it's a killer virus."
Right.
Police threatened him. The police said, "Don't talk." And eventually, unfortunately, he was infected himself, and he succumbed to the virus 2 days ago. Now, when I reported that he's dead,
Right.
everybody attacked me and said, "These are fake news. He's still alive." No, the hospital reported that he's dead. The authorities were angry with the hospital that reported that he's dead. So they actually said, no, 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 he's still alive. We're still. By the way they reacted to the death of the whistleblower, you know how they actually do and cook things in regards to the real numbers. Some say that the real numbers are 50 times larger. Now, we're talking about industries that are almost gone right now. I mean, airlines are laying off hundreds of pilots right now. Cruise liners, cruise ships are now completely empty. Nobody wants to be on a cruise ship. I mean, there's a cruise ship off the coast of Yokohama, I think, in Japan. And the virus is spreading within the cruise ship right now. I mean, 65 or 66 people already have the virus, and it's only going to get worse. There's another case in front of New York City, another ship, a Carnival ship that is not allowed in. Cruise ships becoming, a place where a virus can spread faster and easier. Listen, this is big. It is much bigger. It has reached all over Europe. It is in the US. It is in Canada. It is all across Asia. It reached Russia. And the numbers now, the deaths are only in China, apart from one in Hong Kong and one in the Philippines. But I'm just thinking about, even if it's only in China, let's assume it's not anywhere else. Can you imagine how many people are going to die, even if it's only in China? What do you mean only China? China is a country, and there's people there, and
billion people.
Exactly. And listen to me. I pray that throughout this epidemic and pandemic, people will hear about Christ and come to know Christ, because at this point, I don't think the government wants to fight Christianity and the virus at the same time. What do you know about it?
Interesting. The Taiwan News just reported last week that there's a holding conglomerate called Tencent that may have actually that's reported about the virus, the coronavirus, and the numbers that they accidentally leaked said that there are 154,023 infections and 24,589. Far cry from the 600 or so that are actually being reported by the Chinese media. And this was immediately pulled down, and now, trying to do some damage control by the report of this. So, I mean, those significant numbers, and they're, within the realm of what you were mentioning about the numbers being as much as 50 times higher. I think the last number I saw was 589 deaths, but The actual numbers, according to a Chinese company, is 89 so far. So, yeah, it's a matter of concern. But
somebody reported that 100 body bags every day are being filled. Every day, 100 bags are being filled, and they're cremating them because that's the best and the fastest way to get rid of it. So you can imagine. I mean, if we're talking about almost 2 months now, you can imagine the number of people who really died. And by the way, it's spreading faster than we can even imagine. And even if it's within China only, which I believe it's not going to stay there, this is huge. This is huge. And this is part of the pestilences that I believe characterizes the end times. Somebody said that, if the corona is not going to stop, then it will come back even stronger. And when it says stronger, it's not 2.5%, but 10% death, and that's devastating. I mean, think about it. It's a biblical proportion when it comes to the population of the world dying.
Yeah, anything like that that's biological in nature, when they replicate, there's mutations in every replication cycle. So that's why vaccines become ineffective against these things. And after a series of you're right, the bacteria comes back in a manner that it can't be killed or treated. And then you've got something that, like that were basically dormant or non-existent, are now rising to the surface again because they've been mutating over. Now we're seeing these antibiotic-resistant drugs or bacteria that are now on the world's right in line with what Jesus said about pestilence or plagues in the last days. And that's what this is. That Jesus used means and can be translated as plagues, and that's what we're seeing. And one of the things I think that's concerning about this in particular is that the carriers are contagious during the incubation period. In other words, the incubation has been deemed at some 12 or 14 days, but you can be contagious without any symptoms. So then, how do you know?
You can be contagious.
They're not
thinking you're healthy. You can be contagious thinking you're healthy. The authorities think you're healthy. Yeah. You can get off the plane looking healthy, feeling healthy. The hospital will think you're healthy. And then within a few days, you're not, and you already infected quite a few people.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're quarantining ships and cities.
Yeah. And we're talking
about, they don't know who has it.
Guangzhou is now added to the list of the cities. We're talking about 50 million Chinese quarantined. I mean, people don't understand that. This is can you imagine the entire population of the West Coast of America being held in their houses, not allowed to go out to the streets? Think about the industry. Think about the economy. Think about not just the economy of that country, but of the rest of the world. You know how many companies are now stuck without some material to work with that normally comes from China. It is going to affect the economy of the whole world if it's not going to come to an end very, very soon.
And looking at these here, the loss of production, the people that on the cruise ship industry, when they land on the shore, this has economic impacts that are far beyond simply what's going on in the localized area. And looking at this again, Amir, just realizing how much of a role the economy is going to play in the whole lasting motivating factor of the Ezekiel invasion. We know that the world is going to come to a place where global commerce is monitored strictly by the Antichrist. The buying and selling of the whole world system is going to be dictated by whether or not you have a mark on your hand or forehead. And we're seeing all these elements, or at least the precursors to them, the plagues, the geological events, the financial strifes that, interestingly, are a portion of the mechanics that bring it about in the world. And basically, it's all running on all cylinders.
Yeah. I'll tell you the best news I've heard today. And I got a message on Instagram. And as you all know, I've got The Last Hour. This is my first book. And somebody wrote me, "Hello, Amir. Just wanted to let you know that a guy got saved these days after reading the Romanian edition of The Last Hour. God bless you. Looking forward to the update tonight. He said he read more Christian books, but of all, this one changed his life." Well, if that's why this book had to come out, just for that guy in Romania, by the way, it's not the first time we hear about it, then thank you, Lord. And I just want to remind you all, guys, you can also pre-order the new book, The Day Approaching. It's already there, and the study guide that comes with it. But I want you to know that if you come to our conference in Miami at the end of this month, this book, the new one, will be already available. I'm so happy to get those messages. I get a lot of bad messages. I guess I don't whine and complain, but you know also that we are being attacked daily online. Everybody thinks that we're a target that they can just throw their darts on, and it's so good to get those type of messages. I'm sure you get those also regarding your books, don't you?
It is good to know that something has been helpful to someone. And, it's funny, along those lines, I had someone contact me that said there was an elderly woman in a senior care facility that she had passed away. And when the paramedics arrived to try and revive her, she was laying in bed with a copy of my devotional Bodybuilders on her chest. So she had been reading a book about the greatness of God. And it is encouraging to know that something that God has called us to do, empowered us to do, is impacting lives. That's just puts all the other stuff in its proper place.
But if you want to get a hold of this, you can already pre-order it on thedayapproaching.com. You can already get it, but it will be on the bookstores, and you can have it shipped from Amazon or Barnes & Noble from March 2nd. It'll be available. Pastor Barry, I'm so looking forward to ministering with you in Miami at the end of this month. Do you have a clue what you're going to share over there?
So many things are going on, and still kind of working my way through exactly what, and watching the news as to what would be the best and most up-to-date thing to deal with when we get there. But absolutely, it will have to do with Bible prophecy. And I'm actually toying with the idea of giving a message that I gave yesterday at a pastors and leaders conference, and kind of focusing a little bit more on the one portion of the I taught on, which was Revelation 19:10, that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And that word spirit there, pneuma, is the word for life. God breathed life into man. And really, prophecy is the breath of the Bible. So we're going to talk about something along those lines as we get closer. I'll be working on it.
Well, I'm also still debating whether I should share a message called "What's the Deal with the Deal?" And it refers to the efforts to bring peace, to bring peace to the Middle East, and what is exactly is that we need to look for as Christians. But the other one is a message that I'm actually working on right now, and it's called "The Iron and Clay and the World Today." Speaking of course, the interpretation of Daniel to the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw, chapter 2 of Daniel, about the iron and clay feet of that thing. And certainly in light of Brexit, and the UK departed from the EU, we are definitely seeing how Europe is more divided than ever. On one hand, countries are pulling out. On the other hand, you've got the Muslim immigration into the land that is dividing the countries from within. And so I'm working on that one as well. Another message I'm working on right now is the tree of life. a lot of people don't remember and don't understand. God never, ever said to Adam and Eve, don't try the tree of life. And the only time the tree of life was not accessible for Adam and Eve is after their sin. And when they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, the angel made sure they won't be able to come back lest they touch the tree of life. So I'm going to deal with how the tree of life was there for us, yet all we wanted is to take something else. And then when we couldn't take it anymore, we've been dealing with it ever since. People want to live forever, but they can't as a consequence of their sin. But what is the tree of life that appears in Revelation 21, and what is the tree of life that the book of Proverbs spoke about? And so there's so much going on. It's pretty amazing. So, that's one of the things I might be touching also there. Pastor Barry, we have another conference in Vancouver and another one in Fort Worth, in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm looking forward to a very, very full year of ministry together with you.
Yeah, amen. Me too. And what a time to be alive. What a wonderful, your Bible Bite this past week just reminded us of the incredible things that are happening right now that were written of so long ago that we are watching unfold right before our eyes. And, as you said, Amir, we get a lot of negative press, a lot of negative mail. You know what? Hey, we are living in the time of the signs, and all these things are happening around us. Yeah. What an honor. What we all ought to be talking about, and that is Jesus is coming soon.
Yes, exactly. And you know what? Until he comes, we need to occupy. And one of the reasons I'm so pro political causes that are biblical is because one of the ways to occupy is to make sure leadership is intact in synchronization with biblical values. And I wish we could do it on our side, but you guys, it's within your reach. And I'm calling all evangelicals in America to make sure they vote for President Trump. I'm looking at the other options there, and I'm terrified with what I see. I'm not ashamed to tell you that I'm pro-Trump, and I'm not even an American. People criticize me for being political, and Trump is my idol. Trump is not my idol. He's a politician. I don't expect him to be Jesus. I'm never going to go to a church where he's going to give a message. I don't think he can lead anyone to Christ. I mean, he's not my idol. But I think God put him for a reason and for a season, and he's doing great things for the United States because we're watching it. We're bringing back prayer to school. Taking care of the unborn. There's so much that he's been doing, taking care of religious freedom, making sure that families are recognized again, and standing for Israel, and making sure to fight anti-Semitism. Listen, we've never seen a president so not Christian fighting for so many Christian values. And so I'm pro anyone who will fight for those Christian values. And as for now, we know the Democratic Party they just lost it. And you can see it not only by what they say, but even how they behave. Tearing up this State of the Union printed copy in front of the whole world. This is a statement beyond being childish.
Yeah.
It's a statement of I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. This is unbelievable. We're watching things that we've never seen before. And it's, to me, to be alive now. I wouldn't choose any other time but now.
Yes. That was a presidential document with the president's signature, and it's actually illegal to destroy a document of that nature. And some movers to have an investigation begin on Nancy Pelosi because of that action. But, Amir, yesterday, our friend Jack Hibbs was speaking at the same conference that I was speaking at, and he said something that really was stirring, and I was watching online here in the United States. He said that, I asked him, I said, man, what was it like? Because he was in the gap, and he said, well, that was awesome. He said, but what happened on the perimeter of all that was better. And he was talking about the engagements that he had with politicians here in our country who love Jesus, and as he put it, their Bibles are on there, and they've been read and studied. And he was just talking about the fact that, one of the potential reason from Bible prophecy is because somehow it's taken off of the world scene as a superpower. And our hope is the rapture of the church that decimates our country. And his point was that it's going to absolutely have devastating on Washington, D.C., because there are so many God-fearing, wonderful Christians involved in the deepening divide. I thought, boy, that's a message of hope there that the world needs to hear today.
I mean, somebody asked me on the tour today, how in the world can you reconcile having such a pro-Israel regime, and yet America will have to abandon Israel in Ezekiel war? And I told him, how about the rapture? I just told him, I mean, if the rapture happens now, then there is no more administration there, and I'm sure the Democrats will take over and reverse everything when it comes to Israel, and everything when it comes to Iran, and everything when it comes to, literally everything that is not biblical will be brought back to motion. And so I have no problem thinking that America will turn against Israel if this administration will be raptured together with all of us very soon. I mean, that's my first pick. And may I say also, as an Israeli, I wish it will happen before Ezekiel's war, because I don't want to be there for that war. This is not going to be a good one. Guys, thank you. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. It's been almost more than an hour. I want to encourage you, if you want to come on our tour, the tours are amazing. We have Bible study on location. There's some more spaces on the May tour. Some people had to cancel because of some problems they had. So there's few spots on the May tour. Please email us to tours@beholdisrael.org. Donnelly also at beholdisrael.org, and grab a hold of those empty spots. Barry, you bring your church to Israel with me. Next month? No.
Yep.
And we've got what? We've got about
end of the month and first week in April. Looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We've still
the land
got
is
some spaces. If you go cctustin.org.
cctustin.org if you want to join Barry and mine the tour.
And it's right there on the landing page where you can sign up.
Yes. The land is beautiful. The Sea of Galilee has gone way up. Everything is super green, super lush. By the way, right now the almond blossom is all over the country. I mean, it's so pretty. So I invite you to come. Look, the enemy wants to frighten you. And the people that are already here, as always, now understand the biggest enemy during the tour is overeating. That's the biggest danger. I mean, so guys, join our tours. Most of the tours were sold out, but we have a few spots left. Write us. Barry's tour, also cctustin.org. And we would love to have you with us. And that's it. I think we're good to go. We're going to conclude this with the Aaronic Blessing. And I'm going to let you, Barry, have a wonderful Sabbath with your family while I'm going to bed, as it is past 9 p.m. I'm up since 4 a.m. today. Okay, so let me say the Aaronic Blessing over all of you. יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance towards you and give you peace, his shalom, the peace that surpasses all understanding. Not a peace plan, not a deal, but the real peace by the Prince of Peace, who is the Lord of Peace, who can give you peace now and forever, here and everywhere. And we all pray that in the name of that Prince of Peace, Yeshua, Jesus. And all of God's people say, amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys for watching. Barry, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with me on this update. It's much more fun to do it together. We get to, I guess, we get to be more creative this way, and I get that people get more from that. I'm not sure when the next one is going to be, but most probably a week from today. Hopefully you'll be available and we'll be able to do it again together. All right. You want to say something?
Yes, love to.
Last thing you want to say? Anything?
It's we've got, just thought I'd mention to the viewer, we've got a delay between us, so we're not, but for this for each other, is every reason, excuse me, we've got a delay between the audio. So, hey, looking forward to being not just with you here stateside, of land flourishing and blossoming here later in spring.
Yes. Well, again.
So look forward to it. And also at the Galilee.
Yes. Amen. Thank you again. God bless you, and shalom from Galilee.